Hi everyone, welcome to This Moment and the Diamond Mothering with Lisa and Caroline. We're here to create a beautiful place for mums. Hi everyone, welcome back. Very warm welcome. Delighted to have you here on the Feminine First Aid. And today I'm going to be asking Lisa some advice on what we were talking about a little bit, led on from our last conversation, which every conversation always leads on to the next. So if you want to go back and watch the previous one, we were talking about love and the power of love, and Lisa was asking me about that, and I was explaining, really when it came to the core of it, it's not just a word, it's actually what happens in the difficult time, in the conflict, nearly in the conflict zone, where we can kind of hold this space for each other to be able to hold the other person's experience alongside our own. So that led me on to thinking about what is, validation, what happens in that space, in that bubble, when we're holding that space. And sometimes I feel in our culture, we just don't have the tools, we don't have the emotional education and awareness of what we are saying and the effects of the words that we're saying and how unconscious they can be and invalidating to the other person, and obviously invalidating to ourselves then, because we're kind of unconscious of what we're saying and the effect it might have. So just to I wanted to frame it to say, like, validation is really, it's allowing the other person to have their emotions, so they have for their emotional state to exist in that bubble that we're talking about. So there was three kind of everyday terms that I think that people just go to default and just use when somebody is trying to express their emotions to us. And I think it's just out of just misunderstanding and not kind of being educated about how that is, like I was saying, having an effect. So the first one, Lisa, I was going to ask you, about what people say, when you might be having some kind of an interaction and it's you're feeling uncomfortable and somebody is telling you something and that's kind of like, it might be bad news or whatever, and you might say, oh, it could be worse. You start off, it could be worse. So they're telling you some really bad news. It might be health news, or it might be something, a marriage breakup, or something, even if with your teen, like something really difficult that's happening with them, and you're coming in trying to, you just automatically say, oh, it could be worse. How do you think that could be work, kind of unpack that, and how can that be more skillfully orchestrated, that conversation?
Dealt with. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. And I agree, Caroline. I think we have a lot of things that we just say off the cuff without a lot of awareness, simply because I don't think we've been taught better words to use. And I think that for a long time, our culture has been very suppressed emotionally. So we haven't really, even if somebody did use those words with us, perhaps we really didn't have the awareness. Even, I don't know that I would have had that awareness 40 years ago that, oh, that doesn't feel good that they're saying that. There probably would have been a feeling in me that I don't really feel heard, because when you validate someone, you really feel heard. Like, you can talk at somebody, but if you're not hearing the way they feel, then often they don't feel understood or heard. So if the response is, it could be worse, and I'm sharing something that's really big for me and I've got a big feeling, I would immediately feel that what I'm feeling is not important. I would feel like I'm not heard, like I'm being minimized, I'm being suppressed and shut down. And that's not our fault. It's just that this is what our culture has probably encouraged us to do, because we haven't had training or any sort of education in how to deal with people's emotions. And so we often, I remember I used to feel quite overwhelmed sometimes when people would share things, because I thought, what do I say? Like, what do you say? So
Yeah.
someone comes to you and they have a big thing. We don't have to fix them. We don't have to give them a solution. What really helps is just to say, wow, that must be really tough.
Yeah.
That must be really hard.
Yeah.
Things like, I can remember feeling like that and it was shit. But
Yeah.
not telling a story about when it happened to you, because, you know, if they have a story, oh, my daughter's this and this, oh yeah, I remember when my daughter was this and this and this, you know, like some people do that to try and validate too. But it's like, no, just hear for a moment. It's like, that's really tough. That must be making you feel like maybe you feel a bit insecure about that, or maybe that's really making you feel like you can't cope. You know, do you feel like you need some more support? So it's like really paying attention to what they might be feeling and wording that for them, like in a way that's supportive, not trying to fix them, not trying to give them the feelings to feel. But I wonder, you know, I should imagine that I might feel really powerless if that was me. Do you feel a little bit powerless? You know, so it's like just giving them those words, and then they can feel heard, and just holding the space for them.
Yeah, brilliant. And it's just like allowing the emotions to be like validated again, as in they're important. The important where they feel is important, and that means they feel important, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah.
And the next one I was going to say was, I'm sorry that you feel that way. You know, somebody comes to you and says, "Oh, I'm really upset about the way you did this X, Y, and Z. I didn't really, and they're kind of angry." And you say, "Oh, I'm sorry that you feel that way." So you're feeling that it's like as if, you feel that you're actually empathizing with them, but actually that's giving a completely different signal to them, isn't
It's a
it?
bit of a shutdown, really, isn't it? Like, it's a bit of a shutdown. It's like, I've got all this feeling, and I'm telling you, and if you say I'm sorry, you feel this way, it's like, well, hang on a minute, where can we go to from there? How can we actually connect? And how can we move forward from this place? Because I've just been shut down. You know, and like it's not a deliberate thing. Like I know what you're saying. It's like we just don't, like if someone confronts us with their feeling, and even if they don't mean it to be confronting, um, sometimes we just don't know how to deal with it. And I think what happens is we defend ourselves. And I find this a lot when I'm working with couples. It's like very hard for people to learn how to validate each other, because they feel like if they validate each other, they're giving in, that they're admitting fault. And yet that is not the case. Like for me to sit here and, somebody's saying something to me, oh, okay, I get that you feel blah, 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 blah. Tell me more about that. Help me to understand that, because I didn't have that perception. My perception was different. So can you help me understand how you feel?
Yeah.
And then they'll say some more. And you might even say, well, that landed on me as a feeling. Ooh, so you might have a reaction. So, okay, admit that landed on me as a feeling, but keep telling me so that I can understand where you're at, so I can understand why you feel like that. And you're not admitting fault. You're not defending yourself. You're actually there because if you keep in mind that the purpose of these conversations is to actually connect, like you're
Yeah.
using this as an opportunity to connect more deeply and get to know each other. So rather than seeing this event as, shit, I've got to get it out of the way because it feels crap and I want to get to that outcome over there. And often in doing that, we create disconnection. And we miss this opportunity to get to know each other and to feel more connected, and to give each other this beautiful space of support and love and healing and caring.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was just at a note there. They're saying that it feels like it was actually saying, I don't care how you feel, and your reality isn't valid. Your reality isn't valid, because it's like I'm sorry that you feel that way. There's no connection in that, is there? It's like just putting it back on the other person, that I'm sorry that you're feeling a way that you shouldn't be feeling, and that actually that means that your reality doesn't count and it's totally invalid. because it's
Yeah.
not, and that makes somebody feel completely invisible, doesn't it? Let alone
Yeah.
unsupported, but it's kind of like, it's like you're invisible kind of thing. That doesn't really, it's not important in my reality. I'm sorry you feel that way. So it's amazing how just those off the cuff, because in a way, like, we say these things and we're just not aware of the impact it has. And it's like, like those little razor cuts, like
Yes.
those
Yeah.
little things that cause like resentment in the other person then. And then they're not really sure why they're resentful. And that kind of build up on
Yes.
over
Yeah.
time. That can have huge effect, So it's really good to highlight those. Thanks, Lisa. And the other thing was, I'm not having that conversation now, and just to walk away, and actually the silent treatment, so that you're actually, or even to have completely silence in the house, or silence with somebody else, and not to.
Yeah.
How do you see that?
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a big one, actually.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can be a little bit passive aggressive, like that the person that you can feel that they're giving you this vibe, and you feel like you're walking on eggshells. So it can even be like that. And you can, that feeling of not being able to share. And that's actually a dynamic of relationship. So in that dynamic, we end up feeling like there's a power play going on. So the power play is, if I say not now, right, I'm not talking to you now, or I'm just ignoring you, it's like I actually am not capable of expressing my emotions, which is why I have that reaction. So it's a very immature emotional state. And I'm not saying that it's good or bad. I'm just saying that there are better ways to be if you want to feel more connection and love in your relationships than that. So that indicates to me that there's an incapacity to actually understand my emotional world, and therefore I'm certainly not capable of supporting you in yours. So where does that leave the person that has gone to talk to that person? It leaves them feeling like, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not important, I'm not heard. And so trying to get that person to hear, and this has a lot to do with attachment as well, right? Because some people would keep pushing, while the other person just keeps running away. So you have this dynamic that's being created. So I would highly suggest that if you're the person that's trying to share with somebody that has responded like that, don't share with them anymore for the moment. Actually come in and own your stuff, like validate yourself. Like, actually, I am feeling shit and I have got a right to feel this, and I've got a right to speak about this too. But right now I'm going to figure out, what is it in me? Like, what is it in me that's actually being activated right now? And just really validate yourself. Why wouldn't I feel like that? When have I felt like that before? And you might find that when you start to do that investigation, there's a part of you that really needs you to nurture it. There might be a part of you that really needs you to be hearing and loving yourself and supporting yourself in that moment. Do some writing on it. Ring up and share with a friend that can actually just hear you. Like, there are a lot of things that you can do, because in that moment, when you take back your emotional power, so if I keep chasing the person that doesn't want to hear me, and I get resentful and I feel powerless, then I have stayed in that dynamic. But if I step out of the dynamic by going, okay, I'm going to own the emotion that I feel, and I'm actually going to be here for myself. And if I take those actions, then I can use that moment to feel more empowered in myself and grow, which is actually going to help me anyway.
That's brilliant, Lisa. And it's so common though, isn't it? Those when I was looking into reading articles, oh my God, those are things that are happening all the time, and what we see is normal, normal relationships, and it's so toxic, because people just don't have the education, they don't understand it's not that, I think when people have an understanding that they can choose then to find new words, new phrases, new ways of speaking, new ways of relating. And it makes a huge difference in that kind of relationship. We're talking about the diamond relationships, to try and, like, with all the, with your daughter, with everybody in the household, and then when you're modeling that, then people are learning, like everybody's learning from that. And then, you can see the fruits of that transformation, and it can really have a huge effect on your relationships and then on your life, you know, when you apply that, you know, isn't it? Because like I was going to say
Yes,
validation.
massively.
Yeah, and like the validation, like to invalidate somebody's emotion is exactly what you were saying. Not to your feeling, not seen, not heard, not understood, and to validate then is to feel heard, to feel seen, to feel understood, to be, you know. So like if you're doing that each time you're speaking to somebody, that builds the building blocks of, you know, beautiful relationship. You know,
Yeah,
so
it's
like
so true. And that
instead of the cuts each time, you're actually adding like diamonds, or you're adding something really special, you know, each time you're that gold, you know, because every time you have that interaction, you have an opportunity to create value in the relationship, isn't it? You're frozen, Lisa. Okay, everyone. I think she's frozen. We might finish up. We were just at the end anyway, so that was amazing, Lisa. Thank you so much. And we're back on Wednesday for our next Feminine Force. And we'll see you all then. And I hope that helped you all with the 3, and you could practice that, you know, those just being aware, I suppose, of maybe when you might be using those phrases. So thank you, everybody, and see you again soon. Bye.